How do you use a 3D printer? That seems overly technical. It seems difficult. It seems like I'd have to learn a lot. It's really actually a simple process. There is a learning curve, but it's something that we can all pick up, and I think we can all do relatively well. I'll walk you through the steps going all the way from how you get a 3D file to how you actually put it on the printer, take it off the printer, and get to where you have a physical object in your hands that you can use in your shop. All right, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and move on to the process of actually creating a 3D print using a 3D printer. We'll cut over to my computer screen. We're going to keep this simple for today. So you're going to want to use a website like Thingiverse or similar, and we will find a 3D file that we want to print. They have tens of thousands of files available for you to download and use free of charge. Click on any one of these items. Here's a simple cable holder that we might be able to use. So we'll go ahead and show you how you would take this all the way to the point where you have a physical object. So you're going to click either download all files, or you can come down here to where it says files and see how many files there are and actually download just the files that you want. So this one only has one file. So all we have to do is download that one file. So we're going to save it to our desktop so it's easy to find, and we are going to minimize this screen. At this point, it's important to note each type of 3D printer typically has a different software that you would use to print the file with. Creality has its own software. There are third-party softwares, which is what we will be using today. Specifically, we'll be using a software called Chitubox to send these files to our printer. So we open the file into Chitubox, and first thing you need to do with a new printer is add it to your profile in your software. So as you can see here, I have my Halot Mage, my Creality LD002R, and my Anycubic Photon Mono 2 here. Those are the 3D printers I currently have and that I currently use. So make sure that you've added and have correctly selected the printer that you want to print on. This will determine the build plate size that's available to you while orienting and supporting this file for 3D printing. So at this point, you have your file in the software and you're ready to move on to the next stages. With resin printing, the orientation of an object determines, one, how it will be supported, and two, the length of your print. So just for example, this item here, while laying flat on the bed, if we go ahead and get it ready to send to the printer, it projects that it will take roughly 1 hour, 8 minutes, and 57 seconds to print. Now, if we simply rotate the object so that it is standing vertically, and we do the same thing, it's going to now take 5 hours, 41 minutes, and 5 seconds. The reason I show you this is that it's important to know that with a resin printer compared to an FDM printer, the length of print is determined by the height of your object. A resin printer can cure an entire bed, an entire build plate surface layer all at once. So it doesn't matter how full your build plate is, it matters how many layers it has to cure in the vertical orientation. So the higher your object goes, is the longer it will take to print. So with that, we can adjust our prints so that they lay relatively flat on our print bed and reduce the printing time needed to print those objects. The next thing we want to discuss is adding supports to your object. This can be as complicated or as simple as you want to make it. There are benefits to taking extra time to doing it yourself. However, in most workshop settings, unless you're developing a final piece, it's not necessary to finesse every support you place. And in fact, most softwares have an auto support feature. I'll show you that now. You can choose based on the size of your object and have some preset defaults whether you want to put light supports, medium supports, or heavy supports. Light supports are going to be great for things like printing miniature 3D models. A lot of people really like to do tabletop game 3D prints with these resin printers because the resolution is so good. You can get high quality prints And with light supports, you get minimal surface finish irregularities where those supports contact the print. If you're printing something larger or something that doesn't need to have pristine surface finish, then you can either add medium or heavy supports. When I'm in the shop, almost always with larger items, I'm going to go ahead and add auto supports that are heavy. I'll go ahead and show you that now. All you have to do is click Add All. It's going to go through the print and it's going to determine on its own where the supports need to be to make this 3D print successful. Without getting too deep into it, anytime you have a flat surface like this on the bottom, it's best with resin printers not to print them directly on the bed, as your first few layers need to be cured longer than the rest of them. So that will create kind of a warped structure. Actually, I want to remove those and show you one other thing that is important to keep in mind. So if you print it flat like this, you're going to have a lot of supports on this bottom flat surface area. And that's okay because you won't see it for this particular object, but if you wanted to keep the object as smooth as possible, what you would want to do is rotate this item at an angle. The reason for that, roughly a 45-degree angle works well. The reason for that is that each layer can build up on top of itself, and you won't have a really rough finished bottom layer from where all the supports have to initially connect to make this bottom layer flat. So it's always a good idea, even if it adds a few minutes to your print time, to angle your 3D print so that you don't have flat surfaces parallel with the bed. So if we go back to our supports, we add our supports. You know, as you can see, it changed the layout of the supports, but it still added all the supports we would need. At this point, we could take this 3D print file and we can go ahead and slice it. Now what this means is it's creating a file that your 3D printer can read, it can understand, and it will be compatible with your 3D printer. From this point, it's as simple as saving the file and adding it to a USB thumb drive and starting your printer. For this demonstration, I actually have a different file I would like to print. So with that, follow me over to the printer and we'll go ahead and show you how to start a print on the 3D printer. All right, so once you have your file on your jump drive, you'll come to your 3D printer and you'll insert the thumb drive. Some printers do have Wi-Fi technology. I don't find this is very useful for me personally. You'll select your print and you will click print. There are some setup procedures that you need to go before you can successfully do your first 3D print. However, that's not in the scope of this video on setting up a 3D printer, and you typically just need to follow your manufacturer's recommendations on how to set up your first 3D printer. I will let that run in the background while we continue on with the video. Because it takes a little while to print a 3D print, we're actually going to use an item from this 3D printer to demonstrate how you would remove a 3D print once it's completed. Its build process. So typically, resin printers will have a cover that is UV blocking to keep the sunlight out. This needs to be removed, placed to the side, and you will need to remove your build plate from the printer. Most of these have a single screw where it can be removed and set in a place where you can work on removing the print. At this point, the best tool for the job is going to be a simple scraper. Most printers will come with one of these. However, if not, one can be picked up relatively cheaply. I print rafts under mine so that they're easy enough to slide the scraper underneath, and they will pop off your build plate relatively simply. At this point, I like to scrape my build plate just in case there is any residual cured resin on it. Give it a quick wipe. If your build plate is clean at this point, my experience has been that it's perfectly acceptable to place this right back on your printer and continue printing without needing to clean the build plate itself. Once it's completed, go ahead and replace your cover so that UV light isn't hitting your resin vat and interfering with the resin that remains in the printer. At this point, you have the 3D print with its support structure still intact. Now, depending on how well your supports are placed, majority of the time, these are as simple to break off as pulling on them with your fingers. However, for larger objects, like I recommended placing larger supports, this is not as simple a process as breaking them off, and you may need a set of pliers design small objects with that. And with that, you can simply clip the supports as you go around the object to remove it from its supports. So we'll go ahead and skip through this quickly as I remove these supports from these prints. Again, it's a simple process the majority of the time. With that, you have the remainder of your supports, which can be thrown away in the trash. At this point, you may have small bits of supports that remain on your print. That's okay. We'll still take our clippers and clip those remaining little bits off. It's also perfectly acceptable at this point to use a little bit of sandpaper and rub those down. However, I would recommend putting your 3D prints through your wash and cure process before sanding them, as to preserve your sandpaper's life. It makes it last longer if you don't get the wet resin inside your sandpaper. So I'll briefly clean these up, and then we will head over to the wash and cure station, which unfortunately I could not fit on the desk, and we will demonstrate how to go ahead and clean up a 3D print so that it is ready to use for whatever task you've printed it for.
All right, so I had to cut over here to wash and cure these. So this is my wash station. It's as simple as dropping the prints into the basket, dropping the basket back down in. Now this wash uses isopropyl alcohol. Depending on the resin you choose to use, you can use water. However, I use isopropyl alcohol dissolvable resin. So we're gonna make sure we get in a wash mode, and it's as simple as hitting start there. If you don't have a wash machine, you can literally just use a tub with isopropyl alcohol in it, soft toothbrush, something like that to scrub it clean. Works just as well. This is just hands off, automates the process a little bit. So I'll let this wash this. I run it for about 2 minutes for this size part, and I'll come back to you, show you after it's washed, and then what the cure process looks like. All right, so now the washing portion of this is done. So we will just pull this basket out. I like to dump it on a paper towel for just a second. While I get rid of this. And the cool thing about these washing and curing machines is they can do both things on the same machine. So it's usually a good idea just to kind of prevent and preserve clarity of these, is to let the isopropyl alcohol dry before you cure them. These are literally just test pieces for this this video, so I'm not too worried about how they turn out. So we will throw these on here, and I will demonstrate to you how you cure these. And it's a simple matter as putting the lid back on, turning it to cure mode, and clicking start. This process runs for roughly 2 minutes as well, and after that your 3D prints will be done. I would like to mention, however, on flat objects like this, typically I will pause the curing process at about 1 minute mark and flip them over to the other side. That way they just have a chance to cure evenly on both sides. Again, since these are test pieces, I'm not too worried about it. I just did them to show you guys how simple it is to go all the way from something that you have on your computer to a physical item that you can hold and use. So as soon as this would be done, I'll just stop it here. You could take these off, and these are technically usable 3D prints at this point. So very rigid, and you could do a lot with this. So anyhow, I'll go back over to my other camera.
All right, and just like that, we have our 3D prints cleaned up. These are specifically John Wick coins, the coins from the John Wick series. I wanted to build my kids a small treasure chest and include some fun coins to play with. And so, yeah, that's what these are. With that, guys, thank you for watching. I appreciate you if you stuck with me this whole time. For more specific tutorials, check out our YouTube channel. I can build that. With that, guys, I'm signing off. You guys enjoy and build some cool stuff.